Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Is it working? Mm-hmm.
Cindy, do you know if we have all the board members who are supposed to be in attendance?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you think we're ready to start?
We're ready to go.
All right. Welcome, everyone, to the City of Oklahoma City Board of Adjustment meeting for November 5th, 2020, which is now called to order. The meeting is disconnected at any time. The meeting shall be stopped and reconvened once the connection can be restored. The connection cannot be restored within 30 minutes. Items remaining for consideration will be continued to the next regularly scheduled Board of Adjustment meeting. The agenda and documents are located at okc.gov. For anyone wishing to speak on an agenda item or for citizens to be heard, hopefully you've already arranged with staff to be heard, and we will call on you at the appropriate time. When we call your case, I will recognize the applicant or representative to speak, and then I will recognize any protests, and then we will close with with the applicant speaking. The board will deliberate, ask any questions, and then the board will vote. If you have not prearranged with the city to speak on an item, I will regularly ask if anyone else would like to be heard on a matter. At that time, if you'd like to speak, please use the raise your hand function on Zoom. On your computer, click raise hand, and you should be able to lower your raised hand that same way. On your phone, press *9. The board and staff will be notified when you raise your hand. Just to note, if you've already prearranged to speak with city staff, you should not need to use the raise your hand function unless for some reason you're not on our list. These instructions are located on the agenda if you need them. For speakers other than the applicant, please try to limit your comments to 3 minutes. If you call in after your item's been heard, or if you want to raise a different matter, we'll allow you to speak under citizens to be heard at the end of the meeting. When you call in, staff will mute your device, and I ask that all participants except for board members keep their sound on mute until they are recognized to speak. To unmute your phone, press *6. Board members will be allowed to ask questions and make comments at any time. Please do not interrupt board members while they are speaking because we need a clear record and it makes the meetings go by much faster. Before you begin with your comments, please identify yourself by stating your name and address. And this meeting is called to order. Cindy, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Merchant.
Present.
Kitty Asbury.
Present.
Mike Voorhees.
Present.
Monica Ybarra.
Present.
And we have Mike Privet to be absent.
Okay. So we have if this impacts the applicant in any way, we'll have 4 board members instead of 5. So keep that in mind. If that impacts your application, you can try to seek a continuance. That's appropriate. First item on the agenda is to receive the minutes from the October 15th, 2020 meeting. Do we have any changes from the board members or any motions to approve or not approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the October 15th board meeting.
I'll second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second to approve the minutes from the October 15th board meeting. Cast your votes once you're able to on PrimeGov. And staff, it looks like there's some, or it sounds like there's some microphones on. If you could mute everyone except for the board members, that might help. Someone might have gotten through. Okay, just waiting on the confirmation on PrimeGov.
Mr. Merchant,
Yes.
I'm still waiting on Ms. Asbury and Mr. Voorhees votes.
I don't see a panel.
It hasn't shown up.
I will abstain. I wasn't there.
And it hasn't shown up on my screen to vote.
Can you press the escape key?
No, still don't have it,
It's not on mine either.
but I'll abstain.
A voice vote is appropriate.
Sounds like we have one abstention. So Ms. Asbury,
Yes.
do you vote to approve? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And the minutes are approved. The next item on the agenda is continuance requests or withdrawals, and I believe we have some.
I have two continuance requests today. One is item 14, case 14788 has been withdrawn. And item 15, case 14782, request to defer to December 3rd.
Okay. Was anyone hoping to be heard on that item that's going to be continued or request to be continued? Okay. We do not need a motion for the withdrawal, but board members will entertain a motion for the continuance.
I'll move approval.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to continue case number 14782 as requested. Cast your votes once you're able to.
Mine is still not appearing anything on here.
Well, I don't get a panel either.
If you minimize, do you have one or two screens? Maybe if you minimize Zoom.
Okay. Just did and nothing.
There we go.
Really, I'm not getting anything and I minimized the Zoom.
Okay. We got one of two. Is your PrimeGov full screen?
Yes, it is.
Or maybe it sounds like you've already tried escape, but it shouldn't be full screen. It should be, you should be able to move around the PrimeGov window because a new window to vote pops up.
I don't know.
Chairman, we're also finding that refreshing has been helping also.
Okay, we'll try refresh.
I hit that too. Nothing's happened.
Okay, well, we'll just go with the voice vote for now, and hopefully by kind of working through it this meeting, maybe you'll be able to see it, and if not, we can just go by voice vote.
I'm so sorry. Thank you.
Okay, so you seconded it, so I assume that you would also vote to approve it, but I don't want to speak for you.
Yes, please.
Okay. And the motion's approved. Next item on the agenda is the consent docket, and I don't see anything there, so we'll move to items requiring a separate vote.
First item of public hearing is item 1, case 14791. It's an application for a special exception of Jack Lassiter to allow the continued use of a mobile home to serve as a second dwelling to relieve a medical hardship located at 8504 South Triple X Road.
Say the name and address. Yes, my name is Jack Lassiter. I live at 8504 South Triple X Road.
Okay, sir, if you wanted to go over your application for us.
You want?
If you
You want you to go over the application.
Give us a summary of the application if you could, sir.
I don't know what you mean. My niece takes care of everything for me pretty much. I'm not sure anymore. I just had open heart surgery a month and a half ago. And she's my neighbor. She's taking care of me.
Okay. So, sir, the only kind of issue I had potentially with this one is it looks like it's been approved for a long time.
Right. I
and
thought they wouldn't change my tax thing, and they separated that trailer from my trailer, and I pay separate taxes now. So I thought that was the thing here, the variance, but it's not. I heard. So we let it go lapse.
Yeah, I saw that. It's, these are generally only supposed to go for 3 years, maybe, continuance after that for a little bit longer. But this one's going on, I think it was 12 years. And then you're wanting 3 more years.
That was when I first had my surgery, but now I just had my surgery again. And my pig valve went bad. And then I had to have 2 different valves in the last year and a half. And
An open heart surgery.
and they had to cut me open, clean me out the third time. So I've been to the hospital a lot.
Okay. Well, hopefully
And
that's. Oh, go ahead.
In 2017, he also had a couple of heart attacks and strokes, and he had kidney failure, and he was diagnosed with lupus. And then this past year, his valve that he originally got the variance for, it started to mess up, and he had a couple of heart procedures, but none of them worked, so he had to have open heart surgery, and that was just like a month and a half ago.
Okay. Well, I wish you the best on behalf of the city and our board. And you look healthy, so that's good to see.
I got really fat. Not being able to do nothing.
So I raised that issue for a couple of reasons. Usually these are temporary to last, 2 or 3 years. And so that is one issue. But the other issue is if it's going to be something more permanent, it might be in your best interest to look at something more permanent. So you don't have to keep coming back to this board. You can go to a different board and get something that's more permanent.
I thought they might change the variance so that I have 6 acres. I was wanting to give 1 to my niece, but I don't know. They said I got to have 5 acres here.
Okay. Well, I can tell you this. I can support the application. It seems like it's getting more and more justified as you're kind of going through these health issues and trying to get over those. And so it seemed like it was appropriate in 2008, and it seems like it's more appropriate now that you're going to need that assistance. So I can get on board with it. I might just recommend to you to maybe use this time, if your application is approved, use this time to see if there's maybe not a more permanent solution that you can have, so you don't have to come here ever again. You just get something that's going to last forever. But I can support this relief right now. I don't know how the rest of the board feels about it.
Well, yeah, my niece went to school to be a nurse, and she knows quite a bit about illness stuff. I don't know crap or nothing.
He's learning.
Hey, and
I'm scared to learn too much.
approval. I'll move approval.
Okay. I didn't have anyone else signed up to speak. I'll wait a couple of seconds just in case anyone else wanted to speak, or if there's any more comments from the board. And if not, we've got a motion. We can take a second.
Are we, I'll second, but what's the time period?
I'm sorry, 3 years.
Okay. Is that still okay, Monica?
Yeah, I'll second.
So we got a motion and a second to approve a special exception in case number 14791 for the reason that it meets the conditions for a special exception for a period of 3 years. Once you get the voting pane up, cast your votes, please.
I approve.
Okay.
Thanks.
And the application's approved.
Thank you.
Thank you a lot. I appreciate it. I'm really sick, so
I believe you. Best of luck for you, sir.
Hey, thanks. Are we
Okay,
done?
item 2 is case number 14794. It's a request of Kevin and Jennifer Reed for a variance to the accessory building regulations in the R1 district located at 11860 Southwest 3rd Street.
Okay, is the applicant on the line?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, if you just wanted to introduce yourself and present your application.
Yes, I'm Kevin Reed. I live at 11860 Southwest 3rd Street, Yukon, Oklahoma. And basically, we're just wanting to add a garage beside the house. And I guess we got a permit or something. I'm not really for sure. My contractor did. And then he came back and said it got denied. And this is what we had to do to get it approved. And, you know, we'd gone through the neighborhood and taken pictures of other people's that have garages in the same neighborhood. That, and I guess we give it the addresses of like, I guess 12 people that live close to here to get their approval or whatever.
Sorry, I'm just pulling it up. All the exhibits. Yeah, this was one that I was looking at to see if you could potentially move it back any further.
I got a swimming pool in my backyard, but it's still going to be like level with my house right now. And the main thing too is I got 3 kids that drive, all living at home, and we're having to park out in the street. You know, it's kind of a congested. Plus, when we do park out in the street, it's hard for my neighbors to back out of their driveways.
Yeah, this was one that I was back there. Board members, do you have any questions or comments?
I don't. I mean, I just from the drawings, it looks like the property is sort of oddly shaped there with that curve. So I can support this application.
I'll second it.
Was there? I didn't have anyone else on the line that wanted to speak. Is there anyone, or I didn't have anyone signed up that was wanting to speak? Is there anyone on the line that wanted to speak on this application? Okay. And Ms. Ybarra, could we construe that as a motion?
Sure. Yeah. I'll move that we approve case number 14794 for the reasons that it meets the statutory requirements for the variance.
I'll second it.
All right. We have a motion and a second to approve the variance in case number 14794 for the reason that it meets the statutory conditions for a variance. Once you see PrimeGov voting pane, cast your votes.
Approve.
And Kitty, on PrimeGov, do you have the application and agenda open?
I don't. I just have the PrimeGov opened up itself. Do you want me to get out and go back in or something?
Yeah, that might be it. Because if I'm looking at an application, I don't see the window pane, the voting pane either. And so maybe, you know, it's another. Maybe yours is being blocked by the application or something like that. But
Okay, I'll get out and get back in and see what goes on. Okay.
in the meantime, if staff could mark her vote, I think she voted yes.
I did.
Okay. And the application's approved.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Item 3 is case 14795, a request of Crabtree Homes for a variance to the accessory building regulations in the R1 district located at 7700 Davis Drive.
Okay, I think I saw one wave of the hand. If you wanted to just, it looks like you're on mute now, but feel free to introduce yourself and present the application.
Hi, I am Cindy Horton for Tommy Crabtree. I work for him. He's in another meeting. We are a builder, Crabtree Homes, where we are the builder for all 5 of the houses in this little pocket community here. That's kind of a strange R1 in the mix of a bunch of AA land out here west of towards Yukon. It's an oddly shaped lot. With actually, I'll move my screen, floodplain in the back. The house is actually built up on a raised stem wall across from the garage wrapped around. So and it's prohibitive to be able to get anything back behind the house because it severely drops off towards that floodplain. So we are asking to be able to move the shop to where it makes more sense for the lot, or build the shop where it makes more sense for the lot.
I think this one also looked like a unique kind of parcel there that limits where you could have that, not necessarily that you have to have that, but in any event, it is a peculiar piece of property there. I don't have any objection. I don't particularly love doing these, but I don't have any objections to this one. If there are any other questions, comments, or motion? Okay. I'll pause for a little bit in case there's anyone else on the line that wanted to speak on this application. Okay, hearing none. If we have a motion.
I'll move approved.
And I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the variance in case number 14795 for the reason that it meets the statutory conditions for variance. Once you're able to, cast your votes, please. And Ms. Asbury, were you able to see it?
Well, it showed up and I just hit yay, but I don't see anything else going on here.
Okay, maybe we're not waiting on you. Maybe it's just loading or something.
Waiting on Ms. Ybarra.
Oh my gosh, I thought I had already hit that. I'm sorry.
And it's approved. Thank you.
Hey, item 4 is case 14796. It's a request of Omni OKC for a variance to the sign regulations in the DBD Downtown Business District located at 100 West Oklahoma City Boulevard, and Jeremy Dawkins represents the applicant.
Okay, is Mr. Dawkins on the line?
Yes, this is me. My name's Jeremy Dawkins, who work for Omni Hotels. The address is 100 West Oklahoma City Boulevard. So we're requesting a variance for our monument sign that's in the right-of-way that's on Oklahoma City Boulevard. Then also going over the allowable square footage of signage on the north facade of the building.
Okay, if you could just talk about I think at least for my interest, the scope of the variance and the extent of the variances that you're requesting.
Yeah, so the monument sign that's on Oklahoma City Boulevard, because the building has such a far setback, we have a monument sign that sticks out and it crosses over the right-of-way. So on that signage, it's going to say Omni Hotels on it. It's for the pedestrian traffic coming the eastbound and westbound. I mean, the vehicular traffic coming eastbound and westbound on Oklahoma City Boulevard to identify the hotel.
Okay, and then the excess size?
Yeah, so per the ordinances, there's a maximum allowable square footage, and we are 15 square feet above that. So, but it's because of the scale of the building, and this is only on the north face of the building. Because of the scale of the building, you know, we have to appropriately size the, Omni hotels or letters so that they're visible from either the highway or other places downtown. So we ended up, after going through multiple kind of designs with our signage folks, coming up over the allowable square footage, and that was by 15 square feet.
Did you have a rendering of that sign in the right of way?
Yeah, so it's on the page that's up. It's kind of in the middle. Yeah, it's that one right there. So what it is it's a concrete wall that comes up off of our underground parking deck, and that extends perpendicular to Oklahoma City Boulevard. So on that monument wall, there'll be an Omni Hotel kind of cabinet sign that will be on either side. So that's how you identify the hotel if you're coming east and westbound on Oklahoma City Boulevard.
Okay. Board members, any questions or comments? Okay. And JJ, just kind of an aside question. Does this not have to go to any other committees? Downtown design review or anything like that?
I'd have to defer to Cindy, but I believe it's already been.
Yeah,
I think that's what that document is.
Yeah, I've got a certificate of approval in
Yeah.
my packet.
Okay, there. Okay, gotcha. April.
Because I wondered about that too, and it's in the packet.
Yeah, I guess I saw these documents, but it's normally in kind of the narrative part of the packet that tell you what meeting it was and that kind of stuff. But as long as it's gone through there, that's, and they've recommended, they issued certificate of approval, that's fine. Although I guess maybe the question was, don't they give a recommendation on the variance or not? So, I mean, it seemed a little strange that they gave a certificate of approval without a variance, and now they're requesting a variance.
I think the certificate of approval included a recommendation that they receive the variance.
Okay.
Yeah, they made it a condition I see on my page.
Yeah, variance was required.
Yep.
And Mike, did you see the recommendation anywhere?
No, I just saw the certificate of approval. I read it, and it required as a condition they get a variance.
Okay. Yeah, I don't see it, but I can support it, assuming you don't. I just didn't want you to have any procedural holdups later, but I can support it. I think you kept it pretty minimal. The request is pretty minimal, and it makes sense to me. And this is a pretty unique structure, and so I'd kind of expect some kind of variance or something here anyway. But I could support it, but I'm only one board member. So, board members, any questions, comments, or emotion?
I don't think anybody was protesting, were they?
No, I think I opened it up for anyone else a bit ago. If not, I'll wait a couple of seconds just to be sure if there's anyone else that was wanting to speak on this application. Okay, hearing none. I think we're ready.
I'll move approval.
I'll second.
We've got a motion and a second to approve the variance requests in case number 14796 for the reason that they meet the statutory conditions for variances. Once you're able to, cast your votes, please. And variances are approved.
Hey, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, item 5, case 14797 is a request of Premium Land Company for a variance to the accessory building regulations and fence regulations in the R1 district at 9212 Northwest 92nd Terrace. And Zach Holland represents the applicant.
Okay, Mr. Holland, if you wanted to introduce yourself and present your application.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So my name's Zach Holland. I'm with Premium Land. We're the developers of the Britton Farms Edition, which is a new home community, and home construction started out there in January of this year. So we're looking to build a community pool and pool house for this addition. And we designed this common area after some nearby developments that we've been a couple directly and some indirectly involved with, and then going through the building permit process. And we'd gone through 3 or 4 reviews, going over various issues with the plan reviewer. Then it came up that the pool house and the pool, the accessory building code for single family was being applied to it, and that we would need to have these variances approved to move forward. And those being that the pool, which is considered the accessory building, would need to be a variance for it to be built in front of the rear wall of the primary structure, which is the pool house. For the pool, so there's a code limiting the size of an accessory building based on the lot size. So for this particular common area, that would be 1,250 square feet. Our pool, as proposed, is 629 square feet. And then to meet the state health department requirement, we would require a 6-foot wrought iron fence around the pool, and the city code is a 4-foot fence in what's considered the front yard. And so I think the hardship would be this code being applied to a community pool and pool house is what makes this difficult, and what we haven't seen being involved in these projects in the past.
Yeah, this one seemed pretty straightforward to me, and I can support it. But board members, any questions or comments? Okay. So anyone else that was on the line hoping to speak on this case? If not, I think we will entertain a motion, and this will be for all of the variances, or you certainly make a motion for any one or 2 or 3 or whatever, but there are several requests, so we'll want to make sure that the motion includes all of those.
So
I'll move approval. Oh, go ahead, Kitty.
Oh, no problem. This is Kitty. I would like to approve case number 14797, that it meets the requirements of all of the variants requested.
Oh, and I'll second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second to approve the variance requests in case number 14797. The reason that they meet the statutory conditions for variances. Cast your votes, please. And the application is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 6 is case 14799 is a request of Ken Fitzsimmons for a variance to the parking regulations in the I3 district located at 1735 and 1737 Northwest 5th Street.
Okay, is the applicant on the line?
Yes, this is Ken Fitzsimmons at 1228 Northwest 36th Street.
Okay, you just want to give us an overview of the application, please?
Yes, my client Josh Livingston is the owner of this building, and it's a building that was built in the 1930s, and it's pretty much the same as the other buildings on that street in the sense that there are no places to physically park on site because the buildings, for the most part, are built right up to the property lines. And for now, Josh is using this building for his personal company to, fabricate, and there's not much traffic there or anything like that. And so there's not been any issues. And he's just thinking in terms of in the future, for viability, if you wanted to use this building for something else and change the use, which may require that it also meet current parking requirements, and it's just physically impossible to do so. So that's the nature of the request, is to see if we can take away the requirements to have on-site parking to make the building usable in the future.
Do you know what the parking requirements are right now?
Well, it would depend on the use. Of course, if it's a warehouse, it's not very much compared to, say, a bar restaurant, which would be at the other end of the spectrum. I have not done the tabulation to see what it would be with those scenarios, but in either case, we wouldn't be able to accommodate any parking as it is.
And I kind of was wondering for the current use, and potentially proposed uses or potential uses, but definitely for the current use.
Yeah.
From my perspective, it's a totally different application if this is how he's using it now for kind of personal office space. But if they plan on putting a brewery in there or something and bringing in hundreds of people, it's a different application. So.
True, but I think one of the concerns is that, and I'm sure you'll probably have concerns from other building owners in the area, is that like a lot of other downtown areas where parking has been exempted, the downtown parking overlay, I think that would be the hope, is that sort of a overlay, or if it's done variance one property at a time, that could be considered, because as Oklahoma City obviously continues to fill up in the downtown core, it's starting to move to the west a little bit. And not thinking that this is an immediate thing, but it would be nice to be able to see these old buildings in that area readapted and continue to be used, even if it's not for their original warehouse purposes. They really are. It really is an interesting and a nice street to be on. It's got this really unique kind of feel for Oklahoma City when you're down in that industrial area. It reminds you of some urban places that you might see in other cities, and it would be nice to see maybe that eventually that it could become something that, who knows, maybe a district unto itself.
Yeah, it's a great area. Very familiar with the area, and want to see these old buildings get reused. From my perspective on this board, my concern is just giving a blanket variance from any parking requirements, unless the council. I mean, it just seems like a city council thing or a planning commission thing. But for our purposes, I always like to know exactly how many parking spaces we're varying, and I don't feel comfortable with having no parking requirement at all. I understand that helps your flexibility for future uses, but my purposes, I'd prefer to give you a variance for the parking spaces that, based on the current use. So whatever that is, we contemplate that. But for any uses, I have some hesitation on that. But I'm only one.
If I may interject here, my client Josh is actually trying to speak, he said, but he's not able. He's not able to do so. I don't know what the settings are or how that would happen, but he would like to speak if that's possible.
He's been given permission.
Oh, hi, this is Josh Livingston, 1737 Northwest 5th Street. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. The difficulty here is that in the here and now, obviously the building was built in compliance, and then as the city changed, fell out of compliance, in that the CBD district ends at Western, even though really the mile from Western to Pennsylvania along Linwood, most of the northern portion of that, say from Northwest 3rd through Linwood, was built during the same time period and in the exact same sort of method as the central business district. But as the west side became less popular after the ceasing of use of the interurban rail car that used to go to Ellison University, now OCU, up Virginia, that area fell out of favor and was not included in modern CBD zoning as the years went by. So this area just kind of got left behind. Otherwise, it would be treated just like a building in Midtown or a building in Bricktown. While we're not trying to build a nightclub or something over there, we literally have zero availability for parking. And the city, those blocks over there are identical to any other block in downtown Oklahoma City. We don't have houses. We don't have houses around there. We don't have, kids waiting at bus stops. It's an industrial urban city block. So make a lot more sense for, something long-term to be worked out with city council to kind of do an overlay in the area. But I can't even pull a permit right now to add, a couple of office spaces or bathrooms inside my warehouse because the current use is, warehouse. I don't warehouse industrial. We'd be required today to have probably 11 or 12 parking spaces. For every 200 square feet of office space I'd like to add inside, I'd have to add another parking space. If I wanted to make the whole building office space, I would need 57 parking places. You tell me where as a board you guys draw the line on a comfort zone. But in terms of what we can get. But as of right now, we're wanting to do some office improvements inside, wanting to add some office space to the area. We need to run new sewer lines because they're all old. We need to build 3 new ADA bathrooms. So we've got $100-some thousand worth of improvement work we need to do that we really can't even get a permit to do currently because we would be out of step with the parking requirement. So I'd be agreeable to any kind of, relief based on the facts here. And, obviously 10 years down the road, if this became some kind of entertainment area and we wanted to do something retail oriented, then, that would, that would be understandable how you would need to get that approved. But we're really just trying to, at a minimum, get it to where we can utilize it for both office, fabric, industrial, office, and storage. And so the worst case scenario there would be 1 spot per 200 square feet. And we've got, I guess, depending on how the city wants to look at it, we've either got 17,000 square feet there or 12,000 square feet, depending on whether you include the office portion next door. So we put a bunch of offices in there. Like I said, we'd need close to 60 spaces. If it's left as is now, we're required to have 12 spaces, but we can't even provide 12. So we do have the abandoned our building only because it's on the corner. We have the old abandoned railroad parking lot that's actually behind the building. Does not sit on my property. Well, we're kind of lucky in that we have that to use because it's no longer used by the railroad. And right now we have 25 employees that work in that building that park on the street. Just like all the other buildings on the street, everybody just uses street parking.
I guess that was going to be my question is, assuming this is going to be some kind of office use, where is everyone going to park?
Everyone parks on the street, just like in any other city in the world where they don't have a parking lot on every corner. Mm-hmm. Because the area is all industrial, you tend to have these warehouses with between 5 and 20 employees. And because the area is not that popular, and there's always places to park. It's not like Bricktown on a Friday night or trying to find a spot at a Thunder game. There's never a problem with a place to park.
Okay, but it's helpful to me. a lot of, again, I use the brewery example for a reason. A lot of folks are, you know, you're renovating these old buildings to turn them into breweries, and the whole goal is to pack as many people as you can into a brewery.
I tell you what, I wish I was applying for that right now. If I had a tenant for it, this area needs that kind of stuff, because without more foot traffic, we're losing our city to homeless people right now. And I mean, obviously, we're all as a neighborhood working with all the appropriate other city agencies. If you get a brewery applying in this neighborhood, please approve it. I'd much rather see 200 people walking down the street or riding a scooter or Ubering over to the area and bringing us much needed foot traffic. Because if we are going to wait for parking lots to approve better uses, then we might as well wait for the next generation. But anyway, I don't, unfortunately, I have no tenant that would be interested in joining this neighborhood right now, but hopefully that will change in the near future.
Sure. All right. Hopefully it does. And I'm just kind of, if we're granting a variance, normally these get granted forever. So I'm trying to think of all contingencies, and also trying to get something that's going to give you the relief that you want without causing problems with traffic, parking, pedestrians, your neighbors getting mad because your patrons are parking in their lots. You know, all that stuff comes in.
Understood.
But I do want you to be able to pull permits. I mean, that makes sense to me. So, you know, I could get on board with a specific number of parking spaces that we could vary. So I don't know what the board feels like and what would be helpful to you. But, you know, 20 to 30, potentially more, whatever the board thinks. But, you know, I could get on board with varying that much, and then you could at least work with that. And if you needed more at some point, then you could come back and we can talk about it. I mean, I don't want you to have to keep coming back here. I want you to be able to develop how you need to develop as quickly as you can. But with all these considerations in mind, that's kind of where I'm sitting, is putting a number on it. But I defer to the rest of the board on their thoughts. So board members, any questions or comments?
Yeah, I've got a question for JJ. JJ, if this was Central Business District, CBD, does that require any parking for a building at all?
No, parking is exempt in the Central Business District.
So if he was CBD, he wouldn't even be here because he'd be okay to start with.
Right.
Yeah, no, I mean, I point taken, and the applicant mentioned it, but you know, the fact is he's just not, and so we're stuck with trying to figure out what to do with it now that he's not. And maybe someday, maybe he should have been included, but you know, he's not. So I'm just trying to think through, you know, particularly what I have in mind is that condition that we have to meet by statute, that it's the least extent of the variance that's necessary to give him relief. Any other comments, board members?
I think I would like to see a number attached to the request as well.
I'll just comment, Mr. Chairman, that yeah, I agree with you that I don't want the applicant to have to keep coming back, but that's kind of the result of not having a specific purpose and a very specific plan already. It's kind of just a, hey, we need something to work with. And so unfortunately, you may have to come back one more time if we approve for a certain number, if you have a specific plan for a brewery, for example, and you know for certain how much more of a variance you need. So I sympathize with that and don't want you to have to come back, but without a more specific plan as to what you plan on doing with the property, I'm not sure what else we could do besides, and I'm not comfortable with just doing a blanket exception.
Yeah, I would, I can give you a very specific answer. I don't want to sound like I'm vague. I've owned the building for, excuse me, COVID doesn't want to go away quickly. I have owned the building for 6 years and went from using it from storage to active fabrication to now trying to convert it to office because we're outgrowing our buildings on Virginia Main Street, where our company's headquarters is. This has been an additional support facility. We now need to move employees down there. And so we need to spend some money on some of these sewer and bathroom improvements and office build out so that we can convert it from being an old forgotten industrial building to something where employees can park on the street, walk in and go to work like they do on Automobile Alley. So right now our plans, excuse me. Right now our plans are to probably progress starting with about 2,000 square feet and probably eventually more like 6,000 square feet of office space. So if I went on the upper end of that, the 6,000 square feet, I would have to put in 30 parking spaces for the office portion, and then I would still owe 4.5 spaces for the area being used for storage. You could turn that into, I guess, 12 spaces if we were going to call that fabrication. So to answer your question, what would get my personal company's needs would be something around 40 or 45, and I wouldn't have to come back, you know, for my company's purposes, probably anytime. Now, like I said earlier, you know, if I had someone knock on my door, was interested in the area, and I had another building I could move my company to, I'd be more than happy to come back and try to sell you guys on let me put a brewery here and take the exemption away altogether. I think what probably makes the most sense for our neighborhood, because we have so many people in the city council, planning commission that love the Linwood area and they want to see this investment continue. I think what makes long-term sense for us as a neighborhood is to district ourselves together and, you know, go for something like we did down by the river, like a scenic river overlay down in the farmer's market where I own some buildings. The scenic river overlay removes the parking requirement. And that was a concerted effort to target a certain area that was near the CBD. Something like that is probably the right long-term solution, because I'm not the only guy that's dealing with this. But to answer your question, for me to go pull a permit for 5,000 or 6,000 square foot of office space within this warehouse, I would need close to 40 spaces. So if you want a number that would work for me over the next 5 years, that's a number to consider.
That's kind of what I had in mind on the upper end. I think you can get that down by, you know, bike racks and potentially bike racks and landscaping and things like that. Get that down a little bit, but that 40 was about the upper end of what I had in mind that got you the relief that you needed, but also alleviated my longer term concerns. So,
and hey, and I'll tell you, just because it says 40, I can tell you that the chances of 40 people pulling up and parking there in the next 5 years is probably less than 5%. Because like right now, we're going to move about 15, 20 people over there over the next year. Most people don't work within the same square footage of the requirements, even though I understand why those guidelines are there.
Yeah. And I will note, I won't get into your health conditions. I'll just assume that you were joking about the COVID point, but the city's talking, well, the state exemption for the Open Meetings Act is expiring soon. So we're, unless something happens, going back to in-person meetings. And I think this is a good example of a way that, you know, assuming you had a diagnosis, we're not going to get into it, but assuming you had a diagnosis, you wouldn't be able to participate in this meeting because you wouldn't be able to participate in an in-person meeting, potentially.
Yeah, I love this format. And yes, I did have a diagnosis. I've been recovered for about 3 weeks. So thank you for asking. But yeah, this is a great format. I love it.
Yeah, that's great to hear. So that, to me, it just all indicators point toward keeping this going, and hopefully something gets sorted out to where that can happen. I know that other boards are having some issues with this platform, but it's been pretty smooth sailing for us. So I'd like to see it continue. And this is a good example of an application where it makes sense to have this remotely, because now you can continue on with your development.
Absolutely.
Board members, 40 spaces, is that doable for you? Did you want more or less?
40 makes sense.
I can get on board with that.
Okay. Was there anyone else on the line that wanted to speak on this application? Okay. Hearing none, I think we can take a motion.
I'll move that we approve case number 14799 for a total of 40 spaces for the reason that it meets the statutory conditions for the variance.
I'll second.
We've got a motion and a second to approve the variance in case number 14799, limited to 40 parking spaces for the reason that it meets the statutory conditions for a variance. Cast your votes, please. And the application's approved. Good luck.
Thank you, everyone.
Item 7, case 14792 is a request for special exception of Jeff and Lynn Smith to allow home sharing at 3708 Northwest 52nd Street.
Hi.
Looks like Smith, if you want to just introduce yourself and present your application.
Yeah, I'm Lynn Smith at 3708 Northwest 52nd Street. My husband and I live next door at 3704 Northwest 52nd Street. And we would like to do home sharing at the house at 3708. We purchased that earlier this year from my neighbor who grew up in that home when she was younger, moved away, and then came back to live there as an adult. And for health reasons, she had to leave, and we saw this as an opportunity to do something fun with kind of our future retirement plans and have a space for our family that live out of town to stay. You know, they can be close, but not too close and all up in our business. So we're excited to, you know, have this opportunity and need the variance because it's not our primary home. We just live next door. And there's 2 parking spaces. Sorry, forgot to mention that.
I think that was my only consideration was it looked like there was enough parking to have off-street parking. So if we granted this on the condition that it was only off-street parking, I mean, how would that impact your operation?
Well, we would like to offer it with the driveway that you see there. It's a 2-car driveway. And then there is off-street parking. Sometimes, you know, we have to park in the street ourselves. So we would prefer to be able to have the driveway be used for our guests while they're staying at the house.
Yeah, I think my only question was if you could advertise it as no parking on the street, because it looks like there's plenty for up to 2 cars. And with some of the objections that we get from neighbors, it's noise, and then the second one's usually parking. And so if we can alleviate that now on the front end, looks like you have plenty of space and it wouldn't be a burden at all to just advertise it as driveway parking only, off-street parking only.
Yes, I misunderstood you. I'm sorry. Yeah, that it could be advertised as such.
Okay. Board members, any questions or comments? I know one that we will get at some point, if not now, then when the motion comes, but we can do this for up to 10 years and we have never granted one for 10 years. How long were you hoping to get?
Oh, well, I mean, I've lived at the house next door for 12 years now, and we don't plan on moving ever. And so, you know, I think we would prefer to have 10 years, but, you know, if that's not what the board is comfortable with, I'm happy to come back.
I thought you might say 9.5 years, just to.
You know, I'm good with that too. That's a long time.
I was thinking 3-ish. A board member could twist my arm to go a little bit longer if needed, or shorter, I guess, if needed. But that's kind of where I was. I don't know about the rest of the board.
I'll move approval of case number 14792 for a period of 3 years with the condition that it be advertised for no on-street parking.
I'll second that.
Okay, just for procedural purposes for the municipal counselor, I'll make sure that we make sure that there's no one else that wanted to speak on this matter before we actually.
Oh, I'm sorry, Sam. I thought you had already called for that.
That's okay. I don't have anyone signed up, so it's fine. I'm just going to confirm. Okay, hearing none, we've got a motion and a second to approve the special exception in case number 14792 for the reason it meets the statutory conditions for a special exception for a period of 3 years, and on the condition that the advertisement will say that there's only off-street parking, no on-street parking. Once you're able to cast your votes, please. And it's approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 8, case 14793 is an application for special exception of Melissa Graham to allow home sharing in the HP district located at 320 Northwest 21st Street. And this went to the HP Commission. They didn't necessarily make a recommendation of approval or denial, but they sent some findings, and I believe we got those to you in an email.
I did receive those. I guess we'll start with Ms. Graham or the representative if they were on the line.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. You wanted to present your application?
I actually received a permit this time last year, but they accidentally gave it to me without going up to Board of Adjustments.
There really quickly. So you live at this residence, is that correct?
I do, yes. And it's a space in my garage, next to my garage, that is a studio apartment. And then I have a large patio area. Oh, there you can see some pictures. And I use it for when my guests come in town, or I also have a college student who sometimes I would rather him stay out there. But then when I'm not using it for that, I advertise it on Airbnb. And I've been very busy. I have out of, I think, 68 reviews now. I have all 5 stars.
Here, let me stop you really quickly. You're going to hate me, but I just want to understand procedurally what was going on. The first time I interrupted you was just to confirm your address for the purposes of the record.
Okay.
Again,
Yes.
The second thing, just to get the procedural aspect of this in my mind, you were issued a license last year. Is that correct?
Yes. They gave me my home sharing permit, but then I guess the HP, because I'm in his Heritage Hills, I think it needed to go against to the board also.
Okay. And so you went to HP and you got your permit from the city. You just didn't get it from the board of it. You just didn't get it finalized from the board of adjustment. Is that correct?
Right. But well, they gave me the permit, but then I got an email in either March or April that said that they accidentally gave it to me without going up against the Board of Adjustments. So that that my permit was still valid for the year, but when I renewed, I would need to go through this process as well.
And what happened a year ago at HP? Did HP recommend approval of this application?
I think so. I got my permit.
Because this year they did not. The reason I ask all this is they did not take a position this year, which was unusual and makes me wonder what happened last year. Maybe they did the same thing last year. I don't know. I couldn't find it, and I couldn't watch the proceedings. I tried to watch the proceedings earlier, and it cuts off after a couple of minutes. So I don't know. I'm just trying to get up to speed on procedures.
Last year, I went down to the city offices on the 8th and 9th floor and filled out all the home sharing paperwork. I went to the 8th floor. I paid, or then they sent me up to the 9th floor. They signed off on it, sent me back down to the 8th floor, and gave me my permit and had me pay $25. And I think they accidentally they just accidentally gave me the permit for home sharing without moving it forward to this board.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense to me. Mistakes happen. I'm just tried to understand kind of what happened, and in particular, try to understand what HP's conclusion was both last year and this year. But it sounds like we don't quite know last year, and this year there was no recommendation one way or the other. So, which is fine. We can still proceed. I just want to understand what's going on. So, if you wanted to continue now that I've interrupted you a few times on the merits of the application, feel free.
Okay. I have been operating the Airbnb for a year now and have not had any complaints from neighbors or anything. In fact, I believe Cassie Poor sent in a letter. I know she copied Cindy on that, but I don't know if Cindy has it available to where my neighbors sent in a letter asking that it be approved, that they feel it's good for the neighborhood. And there it is right there. Do you want me to give y'all some time to read that?
No, we've received that. It was a bit unusual. Normally we get the opposite kinds of letters in HP for home sharing. So
yeah.
Mr. Chair, excuse me, this is Rita Talley. I have contacted Katie Friddle and she is signing in to answer your questions. She will be online in just a bit. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. And Ms. Graham, if you wanted to continue, feel free, but really just getting to, it looked like, the number of people that you were hoping to have there, that it's advertised to have, the parking, things like that.
It only sleeps 2. And if they bring a baby, like an infant that is not mobile, and their own pack and play, then that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. But it is really just, most of my clients are, the customers are either single, one person or 2. I've only had maybe 2 babies there the whole time. I don't have space for any more than 2 adults. And usually they're in one car.
I think it was advertised as 1 car on street parking and try to have it in front of the house or something like that. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. And I actually, recently I've had a lot of cross country travelers that are moving, and their vehicles are pretty full of, personal belongings. And so a lot of times I just let them park by the space. They go down the driveway and park right next to my car. But it's a tight, that area, the driveways are pretty tight. So I'm hesitant to, let everybody do that because I don't really know how they drive. But if they ask and I have a talk with them, or, once they see the driveway, then a lot of times I'll let them park in the back as well.
Okay. And how long were you hoping to get for a special exception?
10 years.
Good to know. I guess I saw that Ms. Friddle joined the meeting, so if you had any comments before we continue, feel free, Katie.
Mr. Merchant, this is Cindy. When the application came in last year, I don't believe that she was sent to HP. I think we signed off on it in error and she was issued a permit. And then it was brought to our attention by the neighbors. And so we looked into it and she needed to come back and go through this process, and that's where she is.
Okay. So it sounds like we did not get any conclusion or recommendation at the first HP meeting, wasn't it?
Well, I don't know if there was an HP meeting for that. home
Okay.
sharing at all. I think we just signed off the application in
Okay.
error.
Okay.
So, excuse me, Katie is trying to sign in. She's showing as in, but she says she doesn't have audio. So if someone could allow her to be unmuted, that might help. She is on, oh, yeah, she is showing as muted. So if someone could unmute her, please. Thank you.
She is in as a panelist, so she should be able to unmute herself.
Okay.
I'm good now. Thank you,
Oh,
guys.
yay,
Sorry, this is
thank
Kate.
you.
It wasn't letting me connect, call in by phone, and so sorry about that. I could hear some of the discussion. This is the first time that this application went to HP. As Cindy said, it was approved for home sharing previously, and I guess they didn't catch that it was an HP and it didn't get routed to us for review. So last night's HP Commission meeting was the first time the Commission had seen this request.
Were you at that meeting by chance?
Yes.
Do you know why there was not a recommendation?
So the Commission took kind of a neutral position that the property appeared to meet the requirements for home sharing, but kind of deferred to Board of Adjustment on the variance and whether it met the conditions and requirements to qualify for the variance that had been identified.
Okay. I always like to have the recommendations, and I did some digging before the meeting to see if it was required. A recommendation was required. I know various boards and commissions advance applications without a recommendation a lot. Planning Commission probably the top offender. But to me, I don't think it's going to procedurally impact the applicant. I think for everything I've seen says the recommendation one way or the other is not required. I think what I saw says that HP may issue recommendations to the Board of Adjustment, but I couldn't track down the exact thing that said these home sharing applications go to HP first and then go to Board of Adjustment, and how strict that recommendation requirement is. Do you know off the top of your head?
I know that the requirement was that all home sharing cases in HP require a special exception, and we just, as policy, always provide, we always review and provide a recommendation on any special exceptions that go to Board of Adjustment.
Okay, yeah, and that's what I was.
I don't,
From what I saw, it said may, and so it wasn't like a shall that says that HP shall
right.
give. So I'm comfortable with it. I think it just kind of theoretically and academically gives more power to the Board of Adjustment, which I wouldn't think HP would want to do. I would think they'd want to keep.
HP Commission has forwarded comments of this nature a time or two before when, and typically it's been on a case where they were able to say, from a historic preservation perspective, this has no adverse effect on the historic integrity of the district. There's nothing that would be of concern to the HP Commission, but we know there may be non-HP related concerns from other bodies, from neighbors, from residents. So it's not appropriate for us to say, yes, approve it, as if we don't care about those other concerns. But we're saying from HP's consideration, there are no concerns here to be voiced. That makes more sense.
Sure. Before we move on, I didn't have anything else for you. Did you have anything else that you wanted to say?
No, that's all.
Okay. And then board members, any questions of Ms. Friddle before we move on? Okay. Back to Ms. Graham. It looked like you said that people usually use one car. I would prefer, just given this area and given the limited space and given that it's probably going to be on-street parking, if we advertised it as one vehicle. And obviously we have enforcement issues there. If they come with 2 vehicles, one guest once a year comes with 2 vehicles, what are we going to do about it? I know there are enforcement issues, but if it's advertised as such, I think it has a deterrent effect. And so would that impact your application substantially, or would you be agreeable to something like that?
I feel that there's going to be no way of me enforcing it. And I have not had, I think out of 70 people or, bookings so far, 70, 75 bookings, I think I've only had a guest park in front of somebody else's house maybe once. And it was because of laziness, not really because my place was not available. So I kind of feel like that's unenforceable for me. And I don't even, I mean, I could do that, but I don't really know if it's going to actually happen since I can't enforce it.
Sure, I agree. I just think that the deterrent effect, someone's looking at this advertisement and they know they're going to have 2 cars or something, and they see that there's a restriction on parking that says only 1 car, they might not book it. And so it might have a deterrent effect just to limit the number of cars that are out there.
And that in turn would limit my income.
Sure.
So,
No, that's why I asked, and I'm not saying it is a condition. I'm just kind of going through the analysis with you.
I mean, one thing, I'm very, I know you want this, through recorded means, but I don't want people parking in front of my neighbors' houses. That bothers me when, people park in front of mine for the, 5 days straight. So I'm very careful about being courteous to my neighbors. If somebody did come with 2 cars, I would probably recommend anyway that one of them move back to the back and park next to me, just so that there's not 2 cars right out front. But then again, if I'm entertaining, I mean, and I don't even have anybody in the B&B, I could have 2 cars out front because there's 2 cars, there's 2 slots, or there's enough room for 2 vehicles in front of my house. So I almost feel like if I do that and advertise it as 1 car, it will hurt my income. And I mean, it's public parking. I mean, how can I even enforce that?
Yeah, no, it's as we said in the last application, parking tends to be one of the top concerns of
Yes.
neighbors and things. So, these are already literally special exceptions.
Right.
Rule that these aren't supposed to be allowed. And what we are tasked with is trying to find a way to, where it's appropriate, limit the impact and, that kind of stuff. So we just go through the process. I'm not saying there will be a restriction. Maybe it's you advertise it as 1 on street and then if necessary 1 in the back, so you have 2 cars that way. Who knows? But I'm only one. Oh yeah, I was going to turn to the rest of the board, but sure, I'll let you finish and then we'll open it up to the rest.
Since the issue with the permit where I got it last year and I've already been operating for a year, can I ask you, did you have anybody respond that had that does not want me to have the permit or that has concerns about it being approved by the board? I think that will speak volumes for, is there a problem with my guests parking? Did you guys receive any complaints or any responses from my neighbors saying that they did not want me to get the permit?
Yeah, we've received no protest letters, complaints, anything like that on this application, which, and you're right, and that's a great point in your favor, which is you've operated it for a while and we haven't had any issues. Apparently someone found out and informed the city, and that's how we got here in the first place. But it didn't materialize into a protest or anything like that. So
Well, I'm glad they did, because I want to make sure that I've gone through the appropriate measures to have a valid permit that's gone through all the appropriate channels.
yeah, I mean, for your own interest, yeah. I mean, if something happens out there and you have an
Mhm.
injury claim and you're not permitted correctly, you're gonna have some serious issues. So you're right. We need to get this done the right way. Board members, any questions or comments? Okay. I was thinking just kind of based on the unusual nature of this application, I was thinking 2 to 3 years. HP, I think the longest we've done is probably 3. But it didn't go through the analysis the first time with HP. HP didn't give a recommendation in favor of it. They just gave a neutral recommendation to us. It's just kind of an unusual application that I'm not really comfortable doing for a long period of time. So I was thinking 2 to 3 years, but I am also only one board member and can be outvoted relatively easily. So
I was thinking 3, that I'm comfortable with that.
okay.
So unless anybody has anything else to say, I'll move approval for 3 years.
I'll second for 3 years with the conditions that it makes reach the requirements of a variance.
And a special exception as well, right? Just to be clear.
Yes, please. Thank you. I'm sorry.
We've got a motion and a second to approve special exception and variance in case number 14793 for the reason that the application meets the conditions for a special exception and a variance for a period of 3 years. Once you're able to, cast your votes. And the application's approved.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, these next 2 and the following 3 are the same applicant on the same street. Do you want to consider the next 2 together and then vote on them separately?
That's perfectly fine with me.
Okay, I'll just read the 2 together.
Okay.
Item 9 and 10, case 14801 and 14802 are requests for application of Continental Investments to allow home sharing at 3521 Northwest 22nd and 3529 Northwest 22nd Street. And Aaron Farazan is the applicant.
Okay. The applicant ready to give the presentation?
Yes, my name is Aaron Farrison. I'm representing Continental Investments. We're wanting to get a special exception to allow short-term rentals on the properties.
Sir, if you could just please give your address for us.
906 East Comanche Street, in the subject properties 3521 Northwest 22nd and 3529 Northwest 22nd.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. But we're wanting to get a special exception to allow short-term rentals. We've got adequate parking for both locations. I don't know if you can see the parking. It should fit about 3 cars. We're going to allow 8 to 10 guests at 3521. And then we're going to allow 8 guests at 3529. We're going to have rules in place to regulate the parties and noises. Continental Investments actually owns most of that block anyway.
Looks like there's been a change in the presentation today versus what's in the application. And the application I saw up to 12.
Oh yeah, we actually had to knock that down a little bit. So it'll be 8 to 10.
Okay. How many bedrooms? We'll start with the first application.
3521 is 3-bed, 1 bath.
So where am I missing here to get 10 people?
We've got a couch that folds into a bed in the living room, and then we'll have 2 queens in 1 bedroom, and then we'll have a king in 1 bedroom, and then a king in the other bedroom.
Okay. But somehow going to prevent parties? It seems like a lot of people there not partying.
Right. Yeah. The plan's not to allow any parties. Just if we have multiple occupants, we don't even plan on having that many at a time, but we just wanted the option to sleep a large family.
Okay. And I just don't recall off the top of my head. You said there was enough off-street parking. Were you going to advertise this as off-street parking only?
Yes, that was the plan.
Okay. And then did you get a chance to read the protest letter?
I have not.
Okay, you had a letter of protest for both applications, and it looks like the concern was parties and a disturbance in the neighborhood. So if you want to address that letter.
Yes, I'm actually going to let my wife address that.
Sorry, we've got kiddos. My name's Erin also, Erin Case Farrison. So I can see where that concern might stem from, but with short-term rentals, we're actually going to be able to maintain the neighborhood and property better. Clark, the owner of Continental Investments, purchased the block about 4 years ago and has been spending a lot of time, money, and effort in beautifying the neighborhood, one remodel at a time. We do have actually the unit between these two is a long-term tenant of his. She is very conscious of the neighborhood and the goings-ons. And so there will be eyes there if there is an issue. My husband and I are less than 30 minutes from the property to address it personally. But the short-term rental allows us to really have control of the unit. We'll be in it multiple times a week versus a long-term tenant, which could do damage to the property in the area. And really drive property values down in the area. So I can understand the concern, but short-term rentals gives us a lot more control over the property versus a long-term tenant, which is what has been in that area from this time up until this time.
And looking at those property records, it looks like you've owned these since late 2016. Did you have long-term tenants in there before that?
There were 2 long-term tenants, but these have actually been vacant for about a year as they've been remodeled.
Okay.
So you can see this one looks pretty much the same on the outside that you have pulled up, but the other unit has completely been refaced and the interiors are being remodeled as well. New windows throughout. Yes, that's been completely refaced.
I know that one of the comments on that application was that there didn't seem to be a building permit on file. Cindy or JJ, was there a reason that impacts our decision?
No, we can look at that through enforcement.
Okay. So to the applicant, I'll tell you kind of my concerns. One's the number of people. I mean, you might have divined by my comment there about that there's a lot of people there not partying. You know, it just seems like a lot of people there that it would potentially invite partying because they look at the Airbnbs in the area that can accommodate 10 people, you know, for parties and things like that, I would think. So, and I know you're not going to always have that many people, but that's just one concern is the number of people. Off-street parking makes me feel good. That's good. Probably the primary concern for me is that you guys apparently own the whole block and converted these from potentially long-term tenants. You've got a long-term tenant in between them. When that lease expires, or is that one going to become home sharing? Is the whole block going to become home sharing? That's exactly what the city council wanted to prevent, was huge districts that used to be neighborhoods turned into Airbnb neighborhoods, and you no longer have a neighborhood you have, I don't even know what they are, but essentially kind of a spaced out hotel situation with a bunch of short-term tenants. And so that's my major concern with that, given that these are in the same area. I envisioned, and I could be wrong on this, but I envisioned what the city council had in mind being sporadic Airbnbs in little areas of the city and not these concentrated pockets of all Airbnbs in one kind of neighborhood or one block or whatever. So that has me, really questioning this application. Not to say that I'm against it, but it raises some flags in my mind, which
Our focus here today is just these 2 units. At this time, there are no further plans for this block. In fact, he's working on one at the end of the block, I don't know the street number, for a long-term tenant that he already has in mind. He's been a landlord for many years, has many units throughout the metro, and these at this time are the only 2 Airbnbs out of his portfolio of over 200 units. So this is not his focus or plan. It's just an opportunity to diversify his portfolio. And these 2 are vacant at this time and are great candidates because of their location.
Yeah, I understand. It just concerns me that you, and if I own these properties, I would be thinking the same thing. But you already mentioned it's a lot easier and a lot less destructive on the property to have these short-term tenants that are in and out. Their ratings depend on them treating your property with care. You get tenants in there for 3 or 4 or 5 years, you've got to review the whole place because they, and so that incentivizes you, plus the financial incentive potentially of doing short-term rental. You might start seeing the money rolling on those more than your long-term leases and want to do more. So for your purposes, I totally understand it. For our purposes on the city level, I just think we proceed with caution on home sharing in general. It was very difficult to even get home sharing in Oklahoma City. There were a lot of people that wanted it banned altogether, like some cities have done. And the fact that the city council approved it but made you jump through so many hoops to have it makes me think they wanted it to be rare and sporadic. Those are my general thoughts. Not saying I'm against the applications, but those are my general thoughts and kind of cautions. And board members, I don't know if you had any questions or thoughts, but I welcome those thoughts on these applications. I think you're on mute, Ms. Asbury.
So one of my biggest concerns is the number of people that they're advertising, because that seems like an awful lot for a small space, and given the fact that it only has 1 bathroom in it, that's a huge concern for me.
Sure. There are potential plans to put a bathroom in the garage at this time. Obviously, permits have not been pulled, nor has any construction been done. But the idea is that those are large bedrooms. There will be a king over what is the dining room. So if you're looking at the screen on your right side, with a day bed so that a child could stay in that room. So it would then sleep 3 instead of the 2. The middle room will have bunk beds in it for similar reasons. Because of the season we're in, many families are gathering together at Airbnbs for the holidays and for big events because they can't really go and do like they used to. And so our idea here was to create a space to gather in a wholesome way, not necessarily to advertise to bachelorette parties or somebody running up and down 23rd Street. And Airbnb is pretty explicit in their rules and regulations as far as parties go. So it wouldn't just be beyond our rules, but also the platform rules. And nobody would want to be kicked off the platform. They couldn't travel with ease anymore.
Thank you.
How many bedrooms is that 3529?
3 bed, 2 bath.
Okay.
The garage was converted to be the 3rd bedroom.
Okay. Was there anyone else on the line that wanted to speak on this application? Okay. I didn't have anyone sign that, but I know we had that one protest letter. So, board members, any comments? I know for me, I could get on board with it for a shorter amount of time and off-street parking only and limiting the number of people. I defer to the board on the number of people, but 6 to 8 seemed reasonable to me. We did have the protest that was worried about stuff in this area, and so that to me makes sense. I'm not particularly have a strong point on between 6 and 8, but that's kind of what I had in mind.
I was thinking maximum of 8, and I agree on a little bit shorter term. Generally, 3 years is the shortest I think about, but on this one, I'm thinking, let's look at it again in 2 years. So I'd say 2 years, maximum 8. They'll put it in the advertising, maximum 8. Off street looked like there was plenty of good driveway.
Okay.
I can get on board with that.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
And I'm only moving on 14801.
Okay, so we'll take separate votes on that. We've got a motion and a second to approve special exception number 14801 for the reason it meets statutory conditions for a special exception for a period of 2 years off-street parking only, and for a maximum of, it can only be advertised for a maximum of 8 guests. Once you're able to, cast your votes, please. And it's approved. And because the applications were presented together, I don't think we need any further discussion on the second application unless a board member wants to hear more on that. If not, we can take a motion in a second on that as well, assuming they're the same conditions.
I would like to make a motion that we approve case number 14802 with the conditions and requirements that it meets the requirements of the
That prior application.
yes, prime application. Thank you.
Have a condition that they advertise a maximum number of guests. They were asking for 12 on this one.
Oh,
Yeah, I was thinking 8 for both. They're both 3 bedrooms.
That's
both,
where I was headed.
yeah, I thought it was for the same as well, what the first one was for.
Oh, okay, I'm good with that.
okay, so that doesn't change your motion at all, Ms. Asbury?
No, it does not, because that was my understanding.
Okay, I'm good.
Okay, so we've got a motion and a second to approve special exception in case number 14802 for the reason it meets statutory conditions for a special exception for a period of 2 years, advertised as off-street parking only and advertised as a maximum of 8 guests.
Right.
Once you're able to, cast your votes. And that application is approved.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you. Yeah, Mike, I agree with you on that because in 2 years we will ideally have a way to look at all the home sharing permits that have been issued, and we'll have a better idea of what's going on in the city. So I agree with you.
Okay, I'll read these next 3 together as well. 11, 12, and 13. It's case 14798, 14805, and 14806. It's application for special exception of Tricord Investments to allow home sharing at 3021, 3011, and 3023 Southwest 124th Street. And Sherry Whitner represents the applicant.
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you if you'd like to introduce yourself and present your applications.
Yes, Cherie Whitnow, 3021 Southwest 124th, 3023 Southwest 124th, and 3011. We are making application for special exception for home sharing. These are duplexes. We've done home sharing already for corporate housing. Mainly that's, we don't advertise on Airbnb, we do corporations. So very little traffic, very quiet. It's been a really, been well received in the neighborhood when I talk to the neighbors. Several of the neighbors have toured our properties as well and looked at what we've done and been pleased with all of that. We've put courtyards in. And of course, just looking at the decorating and the different things that we've done inside.
Yeah,
these are oh, go ahead.
I just heard you say the word, but yeah, I was looking through and trying to find the last time we heard this case for the first time, and I remember it now because they're duplexes. As I was reading this, I was thinking, how in the world did we approve this? But based on the comments you may have heard from the last application, but now I remember it's because the duplex aspect of it. So that makes a bit more sense now. I do still think we may have some new board members since then. So if you wanted to go through the number of bedrooms you're offering, the number of people, the parking, that kind of stuff, I think that would help.
Sure. These are 3-bedroom, 2 baths. They have 2-car garages with the driveway can hold 4 vehicles. Because you have enough, I don't know why, but they're just extra long approaches. So we can put 2 in the garage, and I don't need that many, but to make 6 spaces, but you could get 2 in the garage and 4 on the driveway. However, I've never needed that, nor do I think I will. But I know we've had these units as long-term. We've had them for years. And when we do have the long-term tenants, there is quite a few more cars that you get with that than you do with the corporate. These are usually people that are in for training or they're in for meetings. So it's just been very peaceful, and it's been a good. And across the street, there's single-family homes. They're all single-family homes. Now, this is just one side of the street, and that actually has been brought up. I mean, not as much parking when you have family and teenagers and things. When I say that, I mean there's equal amount of parking as there's always been. There's not as many vehicles that are using the spaces. I mean, there's always nothing's changed as far as we have not changed the property to add on, concrete or anything like that. I'm not saying that. What I mean to say is with the corporate housing, you get less people, less vehicles. The max we've ever had is 2 vehicles so far. We have a king size in the master bedroom, and that would accommodate 2 people. And the queens in the other 2 bedrooms, and that would accommodate 2 people. And then we have 1 rollout bed in case somebody would have a child or teenager or something. So the max that we would ever do would be 7. However, we've never done that. We've never had 7. So we've never, honestly, I wish it would be more frequently that we would rent more than 1 bedroom at a time. But with corporate housing, we normally just end up leasing the king size, master bedroom. So that might be more information than you wanted, but.
Oh, that's helpful. What conditions were placed on this last time, if any?
I don't believe that you had conditions for, that I know of anything. I mean, other than the standard, I believe you gave us, let me think here. I've got to go look at my records, but I think you gave us 3 years. You know, is that what you mean?
I suspect it was 1 year, if you're back here already.
No. Okay. I don't know. I'll have to look and see.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think what probably happened was it was new and there were some, again, I tried to find it, but couldn't find it quick enough. But with this many, we probably said, let's do it for a short amount of time and see how it goes. But I don't have, in front of me, I don't have the minutes to see what conditions were placed on it. I just wanted to be consistent if these are approved now with any conditions that existed before.
Right. I know we did discuss parking, and at the time I addressed that there is a 2-car garage, and then there is 4 spaces that you could use, never been needed, but so far. But you can go, 2 cars toward the front garage door, and then 2 cars behind that, and it fit fine without getting into the street.
Yeah, it looked like there's
Now,
parking.
yeah. The long-term, units, when we have people that have a husband, wife, and a couple teenagers, then that's, it's been helpful to have that. But everyone, there are people that do park in the street when they are long-term.
Board members, any
And
questions?
it hasn't happened on the corporate. It hasn't happened on our corporate.
Okay.
Hasn't been needed.
Mr. Marchant, this is Cindy. I have the special exception from last year.
Oh, perfect.
There are no conditions imposed. It was
Okay.
just granted for 1 year.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. I was thinking we might word something as saying whatever the same conditions are last time, those apply this time. But it looks like there are no conditions. So I appreciate you tracking that down for us. Board members, any questions or comments?
Is that the Brandywine subdivision?
Yes, sir.
Chairman, are we doing these as separate votes or all 3 combined?
I think the municipal councilor would require us to do separate votes.
Okay, thank you.
That's correct. They could be discussed as a group, but the votes have to be separate.
Thank you very much.
Was anyone else signed up, or no one else has signed up? Is there anyone else on the line that wanted to speak on this application? Okay. Ms. Asbury, that sounded potentially close enough to a motion, and maybe.
Yes, I would like to make a motion that we accept case number 14798 for a period of 3 years due to the fact that it meets the conditions and the requirements of a variance.
Special exception, just to clarify.
Thank you. Special exceptions of a variance.
And we have a second.
I'll second it.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to approve special exception in case number 14798 for the reason that the application meets the conditions for a special exception. Once you're able to, cast your votes, please. And it's approved for a period of 3 years. And I think if any board member would like to make a motion on the next application, I think we're ready to hear that.
I would like to make a motion. Oh, go ahead, Monica. I'm sorry.
I didn't say anything. Go ahead.
Okay, I would like to make a motion that we accept case number 14805 on the condition that it meets the special exceptions of the requirement of a variance.
3 years?
Was the motion for, this is 3 years as well, Ms. Asbury?
For 3 years. I'm so sorry. Thank you, Chairman.
Second.
Okay.
Excuse me, could you all make sure that the language says renewal of the special exception so that it matches the agenda?
No.
Thank you very much. You want me to rephrase or just do it?
If you wouldn't mind, please.
Yes, I would like to
For a,
clear that out.
I'm sorry?
So will that be for case number 14798 as well as 14805?
If you could clarify for the record that that's what you intended for 14798, and then make that your motion for 14805. And then if you make it for 14806, just so that the language matches the record in case of appeal.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So I would like to rescind the motion, make a new motion that we accept case number 14798 for renewal of a special exception that it meets the conditions and requirements of a variance.
Well, so let me clarify just to make the municipal councilor's job easier, hopefully. So the first application that we've already voted on, I think she just wanted the board to clarify that that was for a renewal of a special. And so I don't think we need to re-vote on that.
That's correct. Just, yes.
And then, so you've already clarified, Ms. Asbury, that that was for a renewal. And so for this next one, this would just be a motion to approve this case for a renewal of the special exception for a period of 3 years because it meets the conditions that are required for a special exception.
That's exactly what we're going to do.
I think that's where we are. Okay.
Thank you very much.
I still second that. We're good.
Okay, so we've got a motion and a second to approve the special exception in case 14805 to renew the special exception for a period of 3 years because it meets the statutory conditions for a special exception. Once you are able to, cast your votes. And it's approved. And finally, the last application, unless the board members needed any further discussion, I think we're ready for a motion on that as well.
Well, since I've been doing it all, I'll do that one too. I would like to make a motion that we approve case number 14806 with the special application for renewal of a special exception because it meets the requirements and the conditions of a variance. Is that right?
It meets the requirements for a special exception.
Thank you.
Yeah. So for this one, for the HP applications, we might have a variance discussion for these home sharing things. But for this one's not an HP, so this one's just conditions of a special exception. City council made our job a little bit harder, but I think the motion is appropriate. So if it's on your voting pane and you're able to move, it's on mine. Okay, there we go. And then if we have a second. And Ms. Asbury, you probably said it, but I don't remember it. This was for 3 years, correct?
For 3 years is correct.
Okay. We've got a motion and a second to approve the special exception in case number 14806 for the reason that it meets the conditions for a special exception for the renewal for a period of 3 years. Once you're able to, cast your votes. And that application is approved. So all 3 applications for this applicant have been approved for a period of 3 years.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck.
I hope I'm doing everything. I think there was no special requirements, but right, correct? Is that way I understood that?
Correct. No conditions.
It's approved and no special conditions. Okay. For 3 years. Okay. Okay. Thank you so much. I appreciate your help.
Thank you. Looks like
bye-bye.
The remaining item has been withdrawn. Items have been withdrawn or continued. Additional item, we have the adoption of the 2021 Board of Adjustment meeting schedule. Hopefully you've had time to review that and adjust your vacation schedules accordingly. But board members, do we have any changes to this, or are we able to adopt it?
I'll move we adopt proposed.
Okay.
Schedule of regular meetings for next year as presented.
Okay.
I'll second.
Anyone on the line that wanted to speak on this? I see a couple people on the line, so just wanted to make sure. Okay, we've got a motion and a second to adopt the 2021 Board of Adjustment meeting schedule as presented to the board. Once you're able to, cast your votes. And it's approved. Next item on the agenda, communications and board reports. I have nothing on the agenda for board committees, board members, or the municipal counselor. Board members, did you have anything, or city staff? Okay. Citizens to be heard. We'll wait a couple of seconds. Okay. Other business?
Are we in person starting in December?
As of now, it is looking that way, unless the legislature, my understanding is the legislature either needs to act to extend the modifications to the Open Meetings Act, or the governor needs to issue a new state of emergency or something that would impact that. I don't even know if that would work now, because when I read the statute, it said it expires November 15th unless the governor acts or something like that. So in any event, I think, oh, go ahead.
Can city staff just tell us what that's going to look like? I mean, is everyone in the room with us going to be masked? Is the number of people going to be limited that's going to be in there? How is that going to work?
We were given instruction, and we have some literature that they will only allow 33 people into the chamber. All of your desks have plexiglass between them. Everyone attending the meeting will be masked, and they will be temperature checked, and we will have a list of everyone that comes into the meeting. We're going to be social distancing, and we were going to get together with our board, and we're going to have kind of an instruction sheet of how everything's going to be working. And me and Paula will be getting with you guys in the next 2 weeks to go over our instructions that we were given. And then any questions that you have, we will be able to get those answered for you.
Thanks, Cindy.
Is there, I mean, while we have mostly everyone here, is there any, I mean, I know there'll be some procedures that the city council announces, but we can certainly do more or less if we like, because there are meetings, because so we can modify that. I'd like masks. I know in court we're not requiring masks while someone is speaking, but masks are required any other time. I think you can hear people just fine even with the mask on while they're speaking. So I tend to prefer masks on even when you're speaking. But while we have everyone here, is everyone generally agreeable to that?
Yes.
I would prefer that.
Same here. I mean, I don't think we need to be returning to in-person meetings. I think I won't rant too long. It just seems like the height of insanity that we're going back to in-person meetings. When we started remote meetings, when that legislature amended the Open Meetings Act or did what they needed to do procedurally to revise it, we were at 15 cases in Oklahoma, and we were at 2,100 today, and we're going back to in-person meetings. I mean, it's insane to me, but that's beyond our powers on the board. And so we kind of have to deal with whatever the legislature and the governor throw to us. And for now, that means returning to in-person meetings. So we'll see how it goes. I'm concerned. I mean, I'm not particularly concerned. I think I'll be fine health-wise, even if I catch it. But just procedurally, I mean, if a board member gets it, they don't get to participate. Do they get to participate remotely while everyone else is in person? If an applicant, like we had an applicant today that had it, are they able to participate remotely? I mean, I think it's going to procedurally, there'll be some issues. Inevitably, someone on city staff or the board or someone's going to get it, and it's going to cause issues with the meeting. So I'd prefer to keep doing what we're doing. It's worked with our board. Other boards have had issues, but it's worked for our board. I think I'll end my rant there, but the current plan is to return in person for the next meeting. So that's what we'll do.
I'll continue your rant because that's why I missed the last meeting. And I felt too bad to sit in a chair and stare at the camera.
Oh, wow.
You don't want
it. Okay.
So Sam, for the record, I did speak with the OMES legal counsel, and I asked about the same question as you, whether or not you can have dual meetings where some people can do virtual and some can do in-house. They said, unless they approve of it, no, you can't.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's correct. The Open Meeting Act allows you to have one or the other, and the teleconference like this only when they do like they did this time and change the statute temporarily.
Well, board members, feel free to forward to me any ideas. I'm talking to some folks behind the scenes just to see what kind of traction we can get. But under the assumption that we're going to return for the next meeting to in-person meetings, feel free to forward to me any recommendations or anything like that that you might have, or conditions that you would want to place on meetings to make you feel more comfortable. I can think of a few that we might do that would be easy to do just from a sanitariness perspective. But if you have other things, feel free to forward those to me, and we can try to put together some things and run those by the municipal council and make sure we're not doing anything illegal, and try to get those things done so that you're as safe as possible. Any other?
One of the planning commissioners and I both talked to our state representative, and we encouraged figuring out how to continue these Zoom video meetings, because I don't want to sit and cry.
Yeah, no, it makes sense to me, and it's unfortunately, if I'm honest, I think it should be something that's deferred to the cities, so the cities can address the issue that's appropriate for their city. So if the city council of Gotebo can spread out 20 feet apart and still conduct in-person meetings, that's one thing, but Oklahoma City is just not able to do it. And, you know, we don't have that much space. Our meetings don't get that big, but the planning commission meetings get pretty big. I don't know how you're going to fit that many people in there. You know, it doesn't really make sense to me, but I think the city's probably has the same frustrations that we do, and we need state action on this. And so hopefully there's some traction there for the folks that are talking with their state representatives and getting some kind of compromise accomplished. But in the meantime, feel free to send me any recommendations or things that you might have that make you feel more comfortable. And frankly, if you don't feel comfortable, you know, I don't know that I want to put you in a position to where you don't feel comfortable or you get sick. And so if you have that issue and you don't feel comfortable going to meetings, then let me know that privately or approach city staff about that, and we can deal with that as well. So any other comments? All right. We are adjourned. Thanks, everyone.
Have a good one.
Thank you.